Joining me again today is Liz Sandwith from the IA UK and Ireland. Liz, thank you for coming back to talk to us some more. You guys are doing some great things there, and you provided some great insight in our first conversation. So welcome back to continue the dialogue. You know, now's the critical time for internal audit to help their organizations with real-time support. You kind of alluded to this a little earlier. You know, we have to come down off of our perch where we say, well, we can never touch anything in the company because it will compromise our independence or objectivity. Now is really the time when organizations need us, perhaps to help out more than ever. That's where I think an agile mindset comes in. And what does this agile mindset look like to you, and how can internal auditors change the way they work?
I think that's a really hot topic type question at the moment. I did one of my Talk to Internal Audits on Facebook only last week, looking at both Agile methodology as a tool, but also Agile mindset. So in this new world in which we are operating, this remote world, what can we do differently in terms of our mindset? And that has to take account of a whole raft of things. The working day is no longer 9 to 5. Because people have been looking after elderly relatives, people have been homeschooling their children, all of those sorts of things. So from an internal auditor, how do we become more agile in terms of what we're doing? And I think that's around recognizing that we need to respond more rapidly to demands from our stakeholders, making sure that we are responding to the challenges that our stakeholders are putting in front of us. Now, whether that is, you know, how we talk to people, the virtual forums that we're using now, in terms of building those relationships, finding information out, accessing data, all of those sorts of things are really important. But I think it's, you know, it's back to our mindset. Agile isn't fast. It doesn't mean fast. It means thorough, but limber, flexible, and willing to adopt and adapt to various challenges faced by the organization, all of which, let's be honest, is what internal audit is about, the ability to be flexible and adapt. So it almost plays to our skill set, I think.
I think you're right. I think agile auditing has taken on a meaning that perhaps is more formal than what it's really, for me, it's a mindset. It's not some sort of process or some sort of methodology. It's about how do you pivot and adapt quickly to your circumstances.
Absolutely.
Finally, you know, we all know that crises like this can happen anytime. We've been through a few, maybe not quite so profound, but disruptive forces like COVID-19 certainly are unprecedented. What can we learn from the disruption we're going through, and what do you believe is the new normal for internal audit, and how can we be more disruptive of ourselves going forward?
I think now is absolutely the time to challenge who and what we are in terms of internal audit. I think that perhaps we have been, as a profession, a little remiss in moving forward at the speed with which some organizations have moved forward from the 90s through the noughties and now into the 20s. And I think that we need to reflect on that, and we need to think exactly what it is we have learnt from the last 20 weeks and what are we going to take with us as we move forward. And a very experienced head of internal audit talked about bottling what we have learned and carrying it forward into the future. And I'm getting quite frustrated with some heads of audit when I hear them say things like, well, I'll be glad when we get back to working like we did in February. And that's not what I think is going to happen, and that mustn't happen. So I think we need to recognize that some of the things that we've learned over the last 20 weeks, we must take forward. And that's things like producing reports in a more agile manner in terms of responding to our demands of our stakeholders. So I know from talking to a series of audit committee chairs, they get very frustrated that we do an audit, we complete our field work, and then they wait 6+ weeks sometimes to receive a report. What they're looking for is instant information. So you've done that audit. What were the issues? What do we as stakeholders need to be aware of? And I saw a great example recently of a head of internal audit in the financial services sector who's created a memo that he will send out at the end of the audit that highlights the key things. So regulatory breaches, areas that have significant control impact, control failings, so that they can go out quickly to the business, and the business knows we need to take action and what those actions are. I think we also need to absolutely adopt things like data analytics tools that will help do the heavy lifting for internal audit as we move forward. And if nothing else, we have learned from the remote world the importance of tools to help us do our job and audit in this remote world. We can't pop down the corridor and ask for a piece of paper that will answer a question for us. That's no longer an option. So how can we build on that and use that to develop and strengthen our skills moving forward? So I think it's about flexibility. I think it's about recognizing that we need to work differently. I also think, Richard, that it's about upskilling. So some of the conversations I've had have been that perhaps heads of internal audit have not been as commercially aware as they should be to support their organizations moving forward. We're quite good in our world, but this new world where perhaps stakeholders, CEOs are looking to us to come up with ideas around, revenue generation challenges and risks, cost savings challenges and risks. Are we doing that? Do we really understand the purpose, the strategy, the business model, and how they all fit together? So for me, there is a real opportunity for us to upskill ourselves as we move forward into this new normal, or whatever it looks like.
Right. Well, Liz, thank you so much for your incredible insights in our conversation, and thanks to IA UK and Ireland for all the great work you guys are doing. I've been very impressed with the regular conversations you're having with heads of internal audit. I think it's exactly the way for the profession to propel itself through this crisis by getting together and talking out what's working and what isn't. So congratulations to you and everyone at the Chartered Institute. I'm Richard Chambers, President and CEO of IA Global, and thank you for joining us in this conversation.
Thank you, Richard.